Good afternoon, Laura. How are you?
I am great. Good afternoon. Thanks for having me here.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. So first of all, Laura Lummer would love for you to give, first of all, your background, and then I'd love to have you tell everybody your story because recently you got some absolutely incredible news. So
Yeah.
let's start with your background a little bit, and then if you could jump into your journey.
Yeah, sure. So my background is I'm a health, life, and nutrition coach for breast cancer survivors. And it actually my developed kind of from my journey, from my experience of my first diagnosis. But before I was diagnosed the first time in 2011, I had a corporate job and then I had my passion, which was I was certified personal trainer, yoga teacher, clinical Ayurveda specialist. I worked with people to develop healthy lifestyle programs and just my whole life an avid health and nutrition, fitness kind of person. I just love everything there is. I think the human body is the most amazing thing. And I could never know enough. Like I love the study of biology and health, and especially of food. And I think that I was drawn to Ayurveda, which if people don't know, that's basically the ancient Eastern system of medicine, because it was so beautiful the way that Ayurveda tied our health back to the earth, back to circadian rhythms. And this was back in 2006 when I went through that program with the California College of Ayurveda. And it just took the Western perspective of health and nutrition that I had known so well and just opened it up to something so much bigger.
Hmm.
And started tying lifestyle and thoughts and emotions and our connection to the food and our connection to water and sun and the earth back to being healthy individuals. And I loved that. I thought it was absolutely amazing. And so that was my background. And I worked, a lot and was always very passionate about health. And then in 2011, was one of those things. So I got a diagnosis of stage 2 breast cancer in 2011. And I laugh a little bit because I was the person who Naisha talks about when she says, what are these people who say I was so healthy till I got cancer?
I was doing all
Right?
the things.
I was doing all the things. I was the yoga teacher. I was doing yoga. I was a vegetarian for almost 10 years prior to that diagnosis. And when I got diagnosed, it was shocking because I come from a family of people with a lot of health issues, with morbid obesity, with diabetes, with heart disease. And so it was very important to me to be very intentional about my health. And I thought that that's what I was doing. So when I got that diagnosis, it was shocking. It was absolutely shocking. I just couldn't understand it. And I went, I was very afraid. So I lost my brother to testicular cancer in 1993. And that was
Oh,
really the only experience I had had around cancer was watching what he went through. He was 32. He was diagnosed in November. He passed away 6 months later.
wow.
And because he was advanced metastasis when he was diagnosed. So that was what was in my head. And I had four kids, two were still at home. My youngest was 12, and the second one that was still at home was 17 at the time. And I just thought, I don't want to die. What am I supposed to do? And it was at the time, my doctor, my physician was a naturopath. So she was covered under my insurance because she was an MD and an ND. When I found the lump in my breast, I went to her immediately. I found it on the 3rd of July, and it was a long weekend. And July 5th, I was in her office, and she ran me through the diagnostics immediately. And then as I sat in her office, she said to me, well, I don't work with the allopathic field at all. I haven't in forever. So you should go home and Google what your next steps are because I don't really know what to tell you. And I was like, shell shocked, right? I said, you're sending me out the door to Google what to do with
Right.
cancer? What am I supposed to do? So it was very scary. And I got a phone call. Fortunately, my sister had a friend of a friend who was a breast cancer survivor and a mentor at a local hospital here who guided newly diagnosed breast cancer patients. She called me and helped me a lot.
Mm.
So she answered some questions. She helped me discover, like, what's the first step? Who do I go to see? So in that diagnosis, I went through the regular standard of care protocol. I had a lumpectomy, and then the post-surgical pathology showed that they did not get it all and that it had spread to my lymph nodes under my arm, under my right arm. So I was told to do chemotherapy because it was probably systemic. And as much as I did not, as every cell in my body was screaming, don't do chemotherapy, I was terrified of it. Again, I just had visuals of what my brother went through, but I didn't know any different then. Like, I didn't know that there were other options. I mean, I knew about eating healthy and stuff, but clearly I thought I've done that for so long and here I've got cancer.
Right.
So I went through
And
chemotherapy.
genetics, right? Like my brother had it, I'm
Yeah,
destined to have it, genetics.
yeah, yeah. And I just thought, I just don't want to die. And, when you go into like, I mean, I follow an integrated approach to health. So I by no means I'm grateful that we have a standard of care system. But at the same time, the true fact for me is that it's a very fear-based system.
Yeah.
And so you're already scared and you go in and you get a lot of scary feedback and directions from people you trust in positions of authority. And so I think, I often say like we choose between two awful choices. We make decisions not based on this is a good choice, this is a bad choice, but this is a bad choice and this is a worse choice.
Yeah.
Which one is the lesser of two evils?
It's terrifying.
And yeah, and in that situation, it's like, do I do chemotherapy or do I take my chances with no chemotherapy? And then does this spread throughout my body and I die and I wish I'd done chemotherapy? So it's a
And you already
really
thought you were doing all the things. So
right.
what's
Yeah.
left?
Exactly. So I did do chemotherapy, and again, it was, found out that they didn't get all the cancer in the lumpectomy, so I went back for a bilateral mastectomy after that, and reconstruction. So it started in July of 2011, and it ended everything. The active treatment ended in December of 2012, and then I was put on an aromatase inhibitor, tamoxifen, at the time. And tamoxifen made me so sick, it was literally worse than chemotherapy.
Mm.
I was only able to do it for a couple of months. My blood pressure went through the roof. Like it was this random way that I discovered it. My daughter was sick and I was at the pharmacy picking up a prescription for her. And as I waited for it, I sat at one of those blood pressure machines and it took my blood pressure. And I'd been having a lot of headaches. And I took my blood pressure and it was 155 over 110. And I thought, oh, this thing
What's
is
going
not
on?
calibrated. Like this machine is broken, right? And weird thing, and I dismissed it. I was like, there's no way. I don't have high blood pressure. And they were out of one of the medications my daughter needed. They sent me to another location. So I went to that pharmacy to pick it up and I sat at their blood pressure machine and I got the same reading. And I thought, what is going on?
Mm.
Something's not right. And I called my doctor and he said, oh, it's probably the tamoxifen. So we're going to take you off it for 2 weeks, put you on blood pressure medicine, and then put you back on the tamoxifen. And that was the last straw for me. And that was when I said, no, no, I'm not doing that. That's too much. Like, I don't have blood pressure. That medicine is giving me high blood pressure.
Right.
And then you want to give me another medicine, and I don't want to go down that pharmaceutical snowball. Right.
Right.
And so it was during that time after that had happened, after I got off tamoxifen, where I started my exploration of really looking into like, what else can I do? What else is available? And I went back to the program at our local hospital to become a mentor, the same woman who reached out to me, that position, because it meant so much to me that I went back to the hospital and said, I want to be able to do that for other people. And when I did that, I started meeting all these other women who were mentors. And to be a mentor, you had to be at least a year out of your active treatment, and then you had to go through the training at the hospital. So I started meeting these women and I started learning from them like, she has anxiety, she has depression, she lives with fear, all of these mental, emotional struggles they were going through that I was going through. I can't lose weight. My nails never grew back. All these weird things that were happening to their bodies that were happening in my body and that I was talking to my doctor about, and my doctor was saying, yeah, that's not because of chemo. No, that doesn't really happen every, that's just you. And then I found all these other women that were saying, well, that's what my doctor told me. It's just me. And I'm like, well, it's just me. And it's just you. And it's you. And it's you. And it's all of us. It's happening to all of us. And I really got very passionate about serving that community.
Mm.
And I realized like when we're in treatment, there's so many resources. And it's like I often use the analogy of being pregnant. You know, when you're pregnant, people dote on you and they care for
Right.
you and they help you and they pick everything up. And then you have this baby who's up all night and screaming and you don't know what in the world to do with
Nobody's
it.
there.
And everybody's like, fine, have fun, you know? And when you're going through cancer treatment, same thing. People are worried and they're around you and they're supporting you and they're starting food trains. And then the doctor says, you're done, you're good. And everybody's like, yes, all right, get back to work, get back to normal. Let's move on from this. And you are just left shell shocked.
Mm.
And that was what I discovered in this community. I thought it was just me because that's what I was told. It was just me. And I found out that's not true. And I really thought I need to bring some awareness to life after breast cancer, like that
Wow.
year to 3 years after you finish treatment and you have to process the trauma that you've been through. So I went back to college and I got a degree in healthy lifestyle coaching, which is just an integrated degree in exercise, behavior, and nutrition sciences. And I started coaching breast cancer survivors.
Wow.
In that process, I came across more great resources, right? Because to be a coach for somebody, I wanted to be the best coach and keep learning. And I found radical remission and I found the metabolic approach to cancer. And one of the stories that really changed my perspective of healing was in radical remission. And it was the story of a Japanese gentleman who was sent home to end his life with advanced kidney cancer. And, just he tells the story of how he just wanted to sit out on his roof and watch the sun come up, right? But he just organically started to get back in touch with his body. And as he shares his story, at one point he says that he started to send love to his cancer. Every time I say that, I feel choked up, like I get emotional. And I never heard something like that because in our society, we don't hear that. And I never thought of it this way. We don't focus on healing the body, we focus on fighting cancer. And we're
Yeah.
supposed to be warriors and we're supposed to be in a battle and we're supposed to be fighting. And that's where I was. And then
Mhm.
suddenly I went, whoa, what does this even mean? Like this is huge. This is a whole different paradigm to think
Yeah.
about sending love to a body that I've been thinking as betraying me. To think about being gentle on a body that I was thinking I got to push it harder to make it work the way it's supposed to work. I've got to be, come from a personal training background. You're just not doing enough.
Yeah.
You're
Harder.
not
Keep
monitoring enough.
going.
You're not working out hard enough. Yeah, do more. And I have this lovely friend. She's a mind body oncology coach. And I was just in tears and frustration with her one day. And I was like, nothing's working. Like I'm in full blown menopause. I had my phone had one of those little plug-in fans. I had fan on me all the time. I had fans on my desk. I was sweating my butt off all the time. And I just said, I gotta figure this out. I'm gonna figure out how to fix this. I just need to be more disciplined. And she's this very lovely soul. And she said, beautiful goddess Laura, which is how she talks to everybody, right? The last thing you need is more discipline. What
Mhm.
you need, my friend, is some gentleness. And in that moment, at that time, I was like, what are you talking about? What does that even mean? Like, I don't even get it. And I'll never forget she said that because I had a lot of lessons in gentleness. And it was a real evolution for me to begin to understand that fighting my body is not healing my body. What does self compassion mean? What does self love mean? What does my body actually need? My body's not separate from my mind. I'm completely integrated whole being. And if I can't constantly send love to myself, how in the world am I ever going to heal? And as I was on this path, I got a diagnosis of stage 4 metastasis, stage 4 breast cancer. And I was walking at the beach one day, went over to the shower to wash my feet off, and slipped in a puddle at the showers at the beach, landed on my hip. Ended up in the emergency room, got an x-ray. You're good, no break, no nothing. You'll probably get a bruise and it should hurt for a few weeks. And it hurt a lot. And about 4 or 5 weeks into it, I had lunch with a friend of mine who's a physician, and she asked me why I was limping, and I told her, and she's like, we need to get that looked at. I'm going to send you into her husband, who is an orthopedic surgeon. And he sent me for a bone scan and he sent me for an MRI, and he called me and said, you have cancer in your hip. And I was shocked. And I thought, how could this be? Like, I don't understand. I feel great. I exercise. I'm active. How could this be? And
And what was
I'm
the
a very optimistic person.
What was the timing on this? So you had your original diagnosis in 2002, you said?
2011.
Oh, 2011. And then
2011.
you were in what what some people refer to as remission.
Yeah, so I was in, it was so in 2020, so I had been 8 years out of active treatment. And so what had happened is I was on a biannual kind of follow-up at that point, where every 2 years I get a scan and blood work. Well, my scan year was 2018 and then 2020. And I had changed insurances with the company I was with, and I was looking for a new oncologist because I didn't have a great relationship with the oncologist I'd been working with. And I couldn't get into anybody because the world was shut down. It was COVID. So during the year of 2020, so the fall happened in August, at the end of August. But in the beginning, I got sent home from work in March. So I was working from home and all this weird stuff was happening. I was walking out on the beach one day. I kind of stepped off a sandbar the wrong way and it jarred my back and it hurt really bad. I went to my sister-in-law, who's a chiropractor. I laid down on her table. She's the widow of my brother. So she's got some trauma with cancer. And I laid down on her chiropractic table, face down, and she said, Laura, you have a ball sticking out of your back. And she took a picture of it and she showed me, and you could see this thing through my shirt. So if this was my back, this thing was like softball size. And she's like, you need to get to a doctor right now. And I did. I went to my doctor, told them what happened. They sent me for an x-ray. They called me back and they said, there's nothing there. And I said, I can see it with my eyeballs. I can touch it. You can touch it. What do you mean there's nothing there? And she's like, well, maybe it's just fluid. Maybe it's just swelling because you stepped off this curb the wrong way. Let's see if it goes away. And it did go away. It went away after a few days. Okay. So I've been having a lot of shoulder pain, but it would only happen when I would lay down in bed. It would wake me up in the middle of the night, just excruciating pain. And it would be very random. But when it would get really bad, I went to the doctor. They did an x-ray 2 different times. Nothing there. And I'm just like, okay. So I thought I had had reconstructive surgery here. So I thought maybe it's just cording. I hear cording is very painful and I am 8 years out. Maybe I need to, and I did have reconstruction. Maybe I need to get these things out. Right. And, but I felt safe because I was like, I've had a back x-ray. I've had two
Yeah,
shoulder
you're
x-rays.
getting all these tests.
Yeah, I'm a healthy person. I exercise regularly. I eat great. All this stuff. So I didn't worry about anything. And then I fell. Oh, and one morning I woke up before the fall and this side of my forehead was sticking out like swollen. I can't, it was the most bizarre thing. I walked in the bathroom, I looked in the mirror to brush my teeth, and I was like, oh my God, what is happening to my forehead? Went to the doctor. She says, maybe you bumped it while you were sleeping. I said, I didn't bump it while I was sleeping. And if I hit it hard enough to swell this much, there would be a bruise, there would be a scratch, there would be an
Yeah.
it would hurt. And it
You
doesn't
live on
hurt.
a
Something's,
you sleep on a
yes.
concrete bed?
Yeah, and I said, and I didn't get up out of bed, turn around, hit my head on the headboard, turn around and go back to sleep. I'm not a sleepwalker. I know that didn't happen. She says, well, let's just see if it goes away. And it did. A couple days later, it was gone. So I fall, I find out that I have cancer in my femur, my hip, and my pelvis on the left side of my body. And ever the optimist as I am, and my friend being the orthopedic surgeon, I said, okay, well, we can just take it out and do a hip replacement, right? I mean, people are up and get the hip replaced and they're going in 2 days, right? So let's just do that. And he's like, well, let's get some full body scans. Let's get some more
Yeah.
diagnostics. Let's see what's going on. And so I did. And I got a call from them, from my friend. And she said, all right, we got everything back. And you have cancer in the both femurs across your pelvis, in both hips, and describing the places in the hips where it's at, in your lumbar spine, in 4 discs in your lumbar spine, in 5 discs in your thoracic spine, in three of, and with every word coming out of her mouth, I'm just thinking, holy shit, I'm gonna die.
Yeah, sounds
3 ribs, your shoulder blade, your forehead. So all the places where I had random pain and swelling. I had a 5.5 centimeter tumor in my right lymph nodes under my right arm. My chest was filled with fluid. My right lung was partially collapsed, and my heart was surrounded by fluid.
wow.
And I was like, get emotional thinking about it. And I was like repeating it as she was saying it. My husband was sitting across from me and he was just in tears. And I just thought, this is it. Holy crap. This is it. Like, I'm full of cancer. And I was just scared. That first couple days, I just thought, well, I guess I got to figure out how to wrap up life here. And, I think it takes a while to process news like that. But it was about day 3 that I woke up and I was journaling about it. I was thinking about how I wanted to think about this because I'd already learned so much from coaching, from the books I'd read, from the study. I was like, I can think about this differently. I have an option to view this differently. And I am by no means ready to give up this life. I love my life. And I thought, you know what? I read about people all the time who've healed from stage 4 cancer. I've seen the stories, I've seen the documentaries, I've read the books. I'm going to figure out what they do. I'm going to figure out what this means when people say, I literally changed everything and my body healed. And I wanted to know what that meant. And so I went back to the books. I busted out the metabolic approach to cancer. I read Radical Remission again. Like, what did these people do? What did they change? What are all these healing factors? And I dug deeper into a life coaching certification that I knew was very focused on emotion processing. And I really felt like that's the missing piece of my puzzle. Like, I've got to figure out how processing emotions is impacting my health because I really did think I've learned differently since then. I really did think I had all the physical stuff dialed in. And so I did that certification. I learned a lot about processing emotions and holding space for emotions. And for me personally, that meant to me letting go of a lot of anger, letting
Mm,
go of a lot, understanding forgiveness and what that really meant to me, for me, and how to do that, which was not easy, and letting go of old ideas, that people who did bad things to you get off the hook if you forgive them. But that forgiveness is really something you do for yourself to heal
yeah,
and how to think of that differently. It was a lot of big
easier said
lessons.
than done.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, all of that work, that is the hardest work to do of all of it. The physical things become the easiest. Even diet changes becomes the easiest. It's those things that we've been holding on to our entire lives.
That are so hard. Yeah. And, I have clients come to me all the time, and the first thing they want to talk about is food. What should I eat? And the first thing I want to ask them is, why do you think you got cancer? And then they tell me this job, this relationship, this stress, this event. They will always, I've never, and I've had some say to me, well, genetics. And I say, okay, but some people share similar genetics to you and don't have cancer. So, not from a blame point, not from a shame perspective, but from an internal listening to your
Yeah.
body. What is your body telling you? And they will all have a story. And so I thought about, like, what's my story? Like, why do I think I got cancer? Well, I found out something that during my 2020 diagnostics, they went back to those 2018 scans and they said, okay, what did those 2018 scans show versus where you're at now? And they called me and they said, well, that 3.5 centimeter tumor that you had in your right lymph nodes, you never treated. So it just been spreading. And I said, what 3.5
Yeah.
centimeter tumor that
You
I
mean the
had in
one
my
you
lymph
never told me
nodes?
about?
Never told me. Yeah. So I said, what are you talking about? And that radiologist said, well, it's here. I'm measuring it on your 2018 scan, but it's not. And then they went back and looked and said it wasn't in the report. And I did not know that that's how oncology worked. I didn't know that my oncologist didn't see the images, that someone else looked at images and then wrote a report and gave it to the oncologist. So in 2018, I got the all clear and it was just spreading untreated until I fell in 2020. So after going through that life coaching certification, I'd been reading, of course, I read Metabolic Approach to Cancer. I'd watched Naisha speak on every virtual summit, and virtual summits were everything in 2020, right? And since then.
Yeah.
And so I'd seen her speak so much. And, she really resonated with me because there's so many options, right? There's, do you do this juicing and this vegan and this, that? And she just really, what she had to say really resonated with me because it was a full picture of food, but also of emotions and just all the terrain 10 buckets, right? It was everything. And again, it connected back to my love for Ayurveda. And I thought, this is the whole thing. And also, I love when she gets really mad at things. I love listening to her talk and people say stuff. She's
Yeah.
like, nah, nah,
Yeah.
don't do that. Right? But I thought she's really real. And I got an email one day, and I am a big believer in the universe opening doors. When you decide and you do live with intention, that those doors open for you. And I got an email saying that the Metabolic Train Institute of Health was offering this advocate program. And I knew Naisha trained doctors. I'd read about that before, but that she would train people who were not licensed physicians or
Yeah.
clinicians. And I was like, I'm in. I'm going to do this. I need to learn. And boy, did I learn. Yeah. And so it was, I was already in standard of care. I started off on Ibrance in 2020 when I was first diagnosed. Ibrance and letrozole. I went through radiation on my thoracic spine and my left hip, which helped tremendously. It helped relieve the pain. And I wasn't able to walk for several months. I was on crutches because of the condition of the left hip. And so while that was going on, I was learning about what I could do now, not only to support my body to feel well while I was going through these really invasive toxic treatments, but how to make the cancer cells also more susceptible to those treatments so that it would be more effective. And that was a mind-blowing thing too. I was like, wait, so if I can listen to my body and understand my metabolism, it actually makes disease more vulnerable to treatments and, makes my body stronger.
Yeah.
So that was, a really cool perspective. And then learning about my nutrition genome, truly understanding. And this was another thing I loved about Naisha's approach. Stop guessing, right? The test, assess, don't guess. And I didn't realize how much guessing I'd been doing. And I see this a lot too with people I work with. We get a diagnosis, we get scared, we don't want to die. We start reading all the books recommend all the things. So we buy all the things,
All the
we take
Facebook
all the
groups.
things, and we don't think about the fact that overtreatment works both ways,
Yeah.
right? That overtreatment can happen in standard of care and overtreatment can happen in complementary alternative care therapies as well. And so I started to ask myself at one point, my tumor markers started to go back up, and I started to think, like, how do I know if this is working? I think at that point I was spending like $800 a month on supplements alone, right? Plus I was doing saunas and whatever. And so that's why, you know what? I need to get an advocate. I need to get someone who's been trained in the metabolic approach who can look at my stuff and tell me. And
Yeah.
so I did. And I started understanding therapeutic ketosis. And I spent a lot of time just understanding myself, working with my advocate to understand, how do I get in therapeutic ketosis? How do I stay there? What does it mean? How is it benefiting me? And I think some of the most fantastic things that happened while I was following this approach and making these tweaks to my lifestyle was I realized I have so much more energy. I have
Mm.
so much more clarity in my brain.
Yeah.
I don't have brain fog all the time, which always used to be kind of dismissed as chemo brain, right? It's like, oh, you have chemo brain. Okay. It's like when you get older and people are like, yeah, you have aches and pains because you're old. Okay. And we think that's normal, and it's not normal. And so I started realizing, you know what? I have more energy than all my friends around me who don't have cancer, right? I have more energy, and my skin looks healthier and my body is healthier. And it doesn't have to be this way that we think is normal. Like, that's
Yeah.
just not true. So as I went through the process, then I actually did change at one point. My tumor markers just started to go up, and my doctor changed my treatment to Verzenio. And that was really bad for me. I went, things started to plummet. And it, I was on it for about 6 or 8 months, and it was not good. It was destroying my digestive system. I
Mm.
spent most of my morning in the bathroom. I felt terrible all the time. And then I had to take Imodium, to help so I could live a little bit, but I just wasn't feeling good. And my labs were getting worse. And I just finally said, and then I had heard some things about, I'd got some guidance and heard that, like, maybe it's time to switch. And so
Yeah.
I did get off Verzenio. And a couple of months after that, like, things just started going back into a better direction.
Okay.
And I do take Xeloda now. I don't take any aromatase inhibitors. I take Xeloda, and I'm diligent about following all the buckets. And there's still struggles. I mean, there's still times when I want a blueberry muffin. And I maybe have it or don't have it, but I think it comes back to that emotional piece of it is, and this is what I work with all my clients on, is like, it comes back to self-love. And for me, for the metabolic approach to cancer means more than just a protocol or looking at these buckets. Like my life is totally different now. I
Mm,
do work that I love, and I believe that my work is part of my healing. I love my life every day. And I ask myself every day, what do I need to do today to support my ability to heal? And sometimes, and it's never push yourself harder. That's never the answer that
right,
comes to me
right.
anymore.
Do
You
more
know,
work today.
Y yeah, yeah. Be harder, run farther. It's no. And, yeah, it's just been a real transformation. So, when I talk to my regular doctor about it, he's not open to what I do. He
Mm,
sees the lab work that comes in from my naturopath because I work with a MAT-C doctor as well. And, sometimes he'll see and I've told him, I'm very open with him about it because I say, listen, this is what I do. And I don't expect you to know it. It's okay because that's not your job, right? You're going to talk to me about medicine, and my naturopath is going to talk to me about health. Those are
love
two very different things. And you can have your opinion of it. And quite frankly, it doesn't matter to me what your opinion of it is. I believe in this and I feel well. And that's telling me something. So I I lost my train of thought there because I was thinking about, I kind of laugh at how my doctor will see the blood
Yeah,
work
you're
come in.
still taking the Zalota, but you're really focusing on, all of the things. Very
Yeah,
transparent with your doctors, which is really, really important, right? That transparency, but also the empowerment, not being afraid. A lot of people are just afraid to say anything to their doctor for fear of their doctor getting upset. Did you deal with any of that?
absolutely. Absolutely. And, my doctor is not interested. He said to me, uh, do whatever you're going to do, but don't hide it from me because then I don't want to do something that's going to cause you harm, right? I need to understand. So when I told him I started mistletoe therapy, of course, he just went, okay, I don't know why you would do something like
Yeah.
that. And it's like, that's okay. So I had one discussion. So I see my oncologist and I see his NP, and they alternate I go in now once a month. I was every 2 weeks, now I'm once a month. And when he asks me stuff like, why would anybody look at these labs? When he sees the LDH and the isoenzyme, who cares what that is? Not why are they looking at it from the sense of what does it mean and curiosity, but that's just silliness. We don't need to bother with that. And I just kind of laugh. I think the important thing is you have to be so confident in what is right for you that you believe in yourself. You believe in the choice you made. You decide not to second guess yourself, but to look at
Yeah.
the evidence and the data and say, I'm committed to this. I'm doing this. And I'm watching the evidence that shows me whether or not this is working. And if I believe in that for me, then I look at myself as the president, and everybody else are my advisors, right? They're my administration.
Yeah.
And my oncologist is an expert in oncology and oncological medicines. And my advocate is an expert in her field. And my naturopath is an expert in her field. And they all give me their opinions, and I decide what works for me. And I think that when you're
And
really
you sound like
confident,
you're tuning in.
yeah, I keep doing this, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like,
Yeah.
you've got to listen to your gut, you've got to listen to yourself and get away from this. They said that's the right thing to do. So that's why I'm doing it. Like if I was having a conversation with you and said, oh, so tell me why you're taking modified citrus pectin. I don't want to hear, I don't know. Somebody told me to take it,
Right.
and I don't want to be that person. I want to understand, what is this doing? Why is it of benefit? How is it maybe not a benefit? And, a lot of people kind of balk at naturopathic care, supplements and, saunas and mistletoe therapy and that kind of thing because of finances, right? And they say, oh,
Yeah.
that's so expensive. But I see those same people spending money on all kinds of supplements, and Dr. Oz mentioned this or this person mentioned that, and you don't know if it's good for you or not good for you. I'm not saying it isn't good for you, but you don't know if it is
Right.
because you're not looking at your own data and listening to yourself internally and saying, is this working for me? Does this feel good to me? Does this feel
Yeah.
right? And what is my data? What are my labs showing me? What's happening inside this body? So I think
Yeah.
that when you get really rooted in that and you believe in yourself and you believe and trust in your decisions, that even when you're met with sneers, at least I am, and at one point, so I do acupuncture on a weekly basis, and my oncologist said to me, well, why do you do that? And I said, well, it's helped me tremendously with neuropathy. I actually have no neuropathy now from that. It helped me with digestive issues that I had from chemotherapy. And overall, I have issues in my back from where cancer was and where I had radiation. I said, and it relieves the pain in my back. And he says, well, if you stop doing that, it's all going to come back. And I said, you mean like if I stopped doing chemo, the cancer would come back, that kind of thing? And he's like, well, and I
Touche.
said, well, yeah, what would it change? Like if I stop going to the gym, I'm going to lose muscle. If I stop eating healthy, I'm not going to feel as well. I mean, this is the dynamic of the human body. That's how it works, right?
Well, and the reality of it is it's a broken system. It's not about, naturopaths versus MDs versus, other doctors from different practices. There's just only certain things that are covered by insurance. It's a big system. It's very broken. And there's a lot of MDs that are moving outside of the insurance world and moving more into concierge and cash pay models because they want to change the type of care that they're providing and they can't do that under the current model. So it's unfortunate, but if you want to get healed, sometimes you have to seek multiple, and sometimes that does mean cash pay, not because that person or that doctor or that practitioner is trying to overcharge or rip somebody off or do something. It's because they're practicing in a different area that's not covered by insurance. It's an insurance and systems problem. It's not a practitioner problem per se. They all have their different areas of expertise. And like you said, oncologists are very specialized in the tumor. And MAT-C doctors, they can be naturopaths or MDs, are specialized in the person and the whole person and understanding the whole person. And that whole person is what allowed the cancer to take root,
Absolutely. Yeah.
and so we've got to look at it. It's unfortunate that it's not covered by insurance.
Yeah. And you know what, Cindy, I have found through all these years now of managing cancer and healing and all that, that actually, speaking of the financial mindset to people who are going through cancer treatment is an important part of healing because I think it speaks a lot to our being rooted in scarcity thinking.
Yes.
And one of the things I've discovered is that there are a lot of organizations out there that want to help people seeking naturopathic care and complementary care. And when we have to work on our money mentality if we work on healing because we live in a real world and things cost real money. And we have to love ourselves enough that when we hear a price tag on something, our first thought is, oh, that's expensive. I can't do that. Especially, and now I only work with women. So, and I am a woman. So I'm going to say, especially with women,
Yeah.
the put yourself last mentality is very strong. And so they look at a price tag on something that could potentially change their life or save their life and then say, well, I don't want to take away from the regional
Yeah.
soccer practice.
Yeah.
And I've had a client say to me, I can't work with you anymore because my dog has this condition and needs medication every day. And so I can't pay for both. And I'm just like, "Oh, you're going to put your dog
Yeah.
above you. That's
Yeah.
what you're saying right now."
I've asked people that exact question. If your dog needed chemo, would you pay out of pocket for your dog's treatment? And they've said yes.
100%. I see this
Yeah.
all the time. So I do believe, and I focus a lot on a manifestation mentality with people I work with because we've got to learn to love ourselves. We've got to learn to step into abundant thinking. We've got to learn to be able to conceptualize that future version of ourselves and the way we have to think to move into that direction and become that person. And if we stay back here in this old conditioning, it's fear and scarcity and not enough. That does not support our healing. And
Yeah.
so people in our society, especially, don't like to talk about money. It's rude or whatever. But I think it's a really important
Yeah.
thing to talk about with
Yeah.
people and also to let them know there are resources available to help you.
Yeah.
So seeking things out like that, I think, is another important part of trusting and believing in your decision making that the right things for you will work out.
I completely agree. And I will say this across the board, it's not just the US, it's all countries. Because even if you have socialized healthcare where you think it's free, it's the same thing. There's private and we have to pay out of pocket for private.
Yes. Yeah, I have clients in France and Ireland and Canada, and they'll talk about their systems and they're like, "Well, do you think that'll be covered in my system?" It's like, it may be, it may not be, but I think it's important for you, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And that's the question is what's your worth to yourself? Because you're going to have to put in time, you're going to have to put in money, you're going to have to change the way you think when you go out on Wednesday wine night with the girls and you're not the one drinking wine and you
Right.
still want to have fun.
Yeah.
We have to change the way we think about these lifestyles we were conditioned to
Thanks.
believe are
Yeah.
normal.
And so, couple of questions. One, where are you at now?
So right now, as of February, wait, this is yeah, so about a month ago, I got a PET scan. And that PET scan showed that I had one lymph node in my under my right arm that lit up as being metabolically active and nothing else in my body. There was a dim spot. So I guess when they're looking at PET scan, they look at how bright something lights up. And anything under a 5, they say they're not concerned about. So I had one lymph node that lit up above a 5 and one spot on my sacrum that was a 1.
Mm,
And my doctor looked at that, my oncologist, my tumor marker. So I look at the CA 15-3 tumor marker, and it is 18, which the normal range is 0 to 25. And mine is at an 18. And so when my oncologist looked at that, he said, I don't think that's a recurrence, that lymph node. He says, and I don't even know if it's actually active disease because I have lymphedema in this arm. He says that it could just be that it's infected or inflamed because I recently took up boxing classes again. And he's
yeah.
like, maybe you could chill out on the
Maybe
boxing classes.
yeah. And another question, what was were you given a prognosis?
No. So when I hobbled into my oncologist, this was the first time I met him. I was on crutches. I walked into his office and I said, before we start to talk, I need to set a ground rule. I don't want to hear how long you think I'm going to live. And
Okay.
he said, he goes, I would never tell you that. He's a really great guy. I really do love my oncologist. He said, I would never tell you that. I said, okay, we can talk about anything, but we are not going to talk about my lifespan because I'm going to decide on my own lifespan. And I talked to the people around me, my support community. I have a big family, a lot of friends. And I said, you guys can support each other, but you can't bring your fear to me.
Mm,
I have got to put all my energy into healing. And even when we found out about this tumor that had not been revealed to me in 2018, my family was up in arms. My husband wanted a lawsuit. And I said, I got a really tough choice to make right now.
right.
And that is, where do I put my energy? And my decision is to put it all into healing. I cannot fight and heal at the same time. I cannot be drawn into negativity and fighting, and I can't do it. I know myself, and I think you have to know yourself. And I said, I want to live. That's the most important thing. So, for everyone around me, I said, when you call, I'll be transparent. I'll tell you what's going on. But the only question I want you to say is, how is your healing going? Don't ask me what's going wrong or any of that. I want to hear, how's your healing going? And if you're scared or you think I'm not telling you something, you can ask me. I'll tell you. But you talk amongst yourself and work out
Good
the
for
things that you're
you.
processing.
Good for you. That is amazing. That is amazing. Thank you so much for your time. You have a podcast.
Yeah, I
What
do.
is the name of that podcast?
It is Better Than Before Breast Cancer with the breast cancer recovery coach. So it was the breast cancer recovery coach for a long time. And then as my journey transformed, I started to realize, this is really about changing everything because, and again, as Naisha says, we don't get well in the same soil we got sick in. And
Exactly.
so it's really about creating a life that's better than it was before you got diagnosed with cancer. And so that's what it's called. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you're doing it. And
Thank
thank
you.
you. And thank you for sharing your story. I know it's not easy to do. And I really appreciate you taking the time to do that. And thank you so much for being a part of our community. And congratulations. We're so
Thank
happy.
you. I'm thrilled to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Bye.